going to hit this bowl while we wait for that to... On location, we love on location. On location.
They always come close, right?
I can see the headlights.
Laylla and Chelle together outside in Salem. I hope you guys can hear the crickets because it is a beautiful night and we're together and the harvest moon is arising.
It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to the Stoned Witches Hour. On this podcast, two best friends on opposite coasts of the country tell each other, my cat is being a brat.
We tell each other that your cat's being a brat? Do we really?
Yes, we do.
Actually, I think we've done that before. Uh-huh.
Tell each other spine-tingling tales from the west and east coasts of the USA.
But tell them our
this
secret.
month,
Yes, tell them our secret.
we're hanging out together in Salem, Massachusetts, Chelle's current hometown and the home of lots of spooky, scary tales and frightful history. And tonight, for episode 37, we're talking about the House of the Seven Gables and the Charter Street Cemetery, also called the Old Burying Point Cemetery. So tonight in Salem, Massachusetts, I'm Laylla.
And I'm Spooky High Chelle.
Salem has got to be one of the most fun cities, especially this time of year. Well, from my perspective, maybe not from a local so much.
Holy moly, can we just say how many Sanderson sisters have I seen this week? You don't even know.
Yes! Hocus Pocus 2 is out! Yes!
It is. And you know what? Can I tell you something? I'm a horrible witch. I'm a horrible Salem resident. I haven't watched it yet because I've been busy. I'm getting to it. I'm hoping I watch it in the next day or two, but I just had a lot of shit going on, man.
Chelle, I haven't watched it yet either.
Okay, I don't feel so guilty.
I had plans with my kids to watch it the day it came out, which was the 30th. And we didn't.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have time. And so I can't watch it by myself. I got to watch it with my girls. And so we're trying to find time to all get together. But I cannot wait.
And then you know how it goes. I need to set aside like 5 hours because, well, you got to watch the first one into the second one.
That's right.
So it's really kind of like a 2-movie thing. But yeah, Salem is heating up. I mean, you've seen the people. They're everywhere. Everywhere. Insanity. And, you know, I kind of love it except for the parking.
Yeah, parking on those streets is insane.
Okay, so all of our listeners, I have a question. Are there any parking witches out there? Anybody out there know any spells for parking spots? Because shoot them my way. The stonedwitches@gmail.com. I need your parking spells, people.
I imagine this time of year, the place is probably just crawling. Your population skyrockets, I imagine. But we saw people in costume of all sorts, not just Sanderson sisters, and taking pictures by the Ropes Mansion and in the gardens was so much fun. I have to say.
There are a lot of people dressed up already. And I'm thinking to myself, people, you still got 20 some days to go. Horses.
No, hey, my house has been decorated since before the equinox. So I imagine people wear costumes probably all year round, not just this time of year.
Actually, funny story. One of my coworkers in my day job, they start going around town dressing up, usually around the 20th, 25th. And they have 8 to 10 costumes. They rotate through the week of Halloween.
That's fantastic. The only time I ever came close to anything that cool, one year for the month of October, when I would go to pick up my kids at elementary school, I would wear a different witch hat every day in the month of October because I do have a collection of witch hats.
I would just go pick my kids up at school in a cloak. That was enough to put people over the edge in upstate New York. Yep. Like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah.
I did the cloak on occasion, but yes, different witch hat. And I have very simple ones to very elaborate, frilly, full ones with all sorts of different fun things on the brim. And I had a lot of fun with that. So I imagine having a bunch of different costumes to go walk around, go to work in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
How fun is that?
I can't dress up for work, so I'm wearing all black this month.
There you go. Hey, that's a thing to do. And I did notice, I was quite surprised when we went by the Bewitched statue, which has recently been cleaned of red paint because I guess half the residents love the Bewitched.
No, some dick, and he wasn't even a Salem resident, first of all.
Oh, really?
Some asshole came and he dumped like a bucket of red paint on the Samantha statue. You know, to be honest, a little serious note here. I actually think that once the man was convicted, I do believe he was a homeless person that did have some mental health issues. But still, dude, a fucking bucket of red paint on the Bewitched statue. Couldn't you have vandalized something else?
And I've heard that there's a little controversy over the Bewitched statue. Some people love it as an addition to the Witch City, and some people think that it's a little too commercial and not really in keeping with the history of the witch trials or with the current climate of, modern witches and pagans going there. Doesn't really seem to fit in with either.
Well, here's the thing. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's where you got to find the balance between witches, witchcraft, history, and then pop culture. You can't not like Samantha and then come here and go to every damn freaking Hocus Pocus filming site. You can't be okay with Hocus Pocus and not okay with Samantha.
Thank you for saying that. Actually, I'm okay with Samantha from Bewitched being
you
there.
can't be okay with one and not the other. You can't go to every filming location. You can't go to the Commons and see where Hoobie Halloween was done and then complain about the Samantha statue,
Exactly. And I will admit, when I went up to the Samantha statue, I did rub her nose.
Of course
quite
you did.
surprised. Well, yeah, who doesn't want a little bit of nose wiggle and magic in their life? I was very surprised that her nose is not like rubbed bronze, but I expect it'll take a couple years.
But yeah, do you see my point though?
I do.
I see your controversy issue, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be okay with Hoobie Halloween and Hocus Pocus and not with Bewitched.
I'm not a huge fan of the commercialization of anything, but I mean, let's get fucking real. If Salem wasn't commercialized, there wouldn't be so many cool things to do. So it's kind of a necessary evil. I'm glad that
check
that's
this out. Here's another point. If it wasn't commercialized, they wouldn't be able to raise the money to preserve some of these awesome historical places.
Excellent, excellent point. The other thing I wanted to bring up is a lot of this goes to fund the Historical Society of Salem. A lot of the events that happen, even some of our most favorite characters like
Borah.
Like Borah is part of, and we love Borah. Borah is part of an artist collective that works in Salem that helps.
Actually, Borah founded the artist collective, the Salem Black Hat Society. Borah came to town, 6-7 years ago or 7-8 years ago, and saw the need, loved doing what he does. And he got together Jack Skellington. He got together Satan, which, by the way, Satan gives free hugs in downtown Salem. He's a wonderful gentleman.
I'm sad we didn't see Satan. I am a huge fan of the Church of Satan, so it would have been really great to see Satan and get a hug.
And he wears a big sign around his neck that says free hugs. How can you not love it?
Who doesn't like a good hug?
Would they call it what do they call it? The autumn pumpkin head? I don't know. It's like this beautiful...
Oh, I saw her. Yes.
Yeah.
I ran into her wagon complimenting her on her dress.
They have one that does Maleficent, one that does the It guy, the
Pennywise from It. Yeah.
It. So Borah started this collective of street performers called Salem's Black Hat Society, and they just add to the vibe, man. I love it.
They really very much do. Salem just has so much going for it. It's such a rich culture right now, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of. So go check it out. Make sure to tip your tour guides, get involved in all the local happenings, and have a lot of fun. We certainly did today when we went to the House of the Seven Gables and the Charter Street Cemetery.
The thing about the cemetery is some people get confused because it's called the Charter Street Cemetery because it's like on Charter Street, but most people know it as either Burying Point or Old Burying Point. There's like 2 or 3 really old cemeteries here. And the funny thing is, and we're going to talk about another one on a different episode, but this is like the most popular. If cemeteries can be popular, this is the most popular cemetery in Salem.
I think they can. Judging by the amount of people that were there during the day when we were there, it's very popular. Not just the memorial outside of it, but the walking paths that they have through the
actual
cemetery proper.
the actual cemetery where the burial what do you call them?
Mhm.
Burial plots? What is it?
Yes, it was packed with people. It was absolutely packed with people, and there was a
Not
very nice.
alive.
Yeah, that's right. Except for that one mysterious corner that we were over at.
But we're going to talk about that corner in just a second.
We will. We will. We even have some live takes from in the cemetery itself,
Got a couple Hawthorns there.
including the judge that was Judge Hathorne of the
Yeah.
witch trials, who is the great-great-grandfather of Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of the book House of the Seven Gables.
Yeah, so we got to see his grave site, which they've actually preserved his stone, which was kind of cool.
And I believe it's his ghost. I didn't see it. I don't believe you saw it, but people do say that they see the ghost of Judge Hathorne wandering the cemetery.
They do, and it's funny because remember that part of the cemetery where there was like a big tree in the center and there was graves all tucked up against the tree and then there were chains around it?
Yes. Yes, that one family plot.
And I think it was Peel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That's where I'm feeling vibes, is around there.
In the back half, I believe on the opposite half from where Judge Hawthorne's grave is, there's a couple really interesting trees that have grown in very strange ways. And it's interesting there. I would agree with you that side of the cemetery, including that one lone gravestone that you pointed out to me off in the one corner, it's kind of all by itself. I was so wishing that the path went closer.
Yeah, why do you put a gravestone by itself? Explain this to me. Like, I had questions that I didn't get answers.
Me too. It's an almost empty corner, but just the one gravestone. While there are a lot of historical people buried in this cemetery, and there is a map right there, there are a couple spots where people do believe that enslaved people were buried and also paupers were possibly buried without being marked. So they do think there's quite a few graves there that they can't identify the people, because they know there's more people buried there than there are gravestones.
And, we talked about that in one of our recordings as we were walking through. Those people are probably the ones that are given the spooks in that cemetery.
Right.
I don't feel no Hawthorne stuff. We saw a couple Peabodys there. We call it Peabody because we're from upstate New York, but it's Peabody. Peabody if you're here, but for all you Massachusetts listeners, it's Peabody. That's Peabody people. Mr. Peabody is buried there. So there is some very historical figures, but I think it's not the historical figures that you're getting the vibe from.
What I very much enjoyed, I did enjoy wandering through the cemetery and looking at the very, very old gravestones. I mean, it's amazing. And it's rumored that Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author himself, would walk through those cemeteries with his wife, who used to suffer from migraines. And so to help soothe her in the evenings, they would walk through the cemetery. And it's rumored that some of the names that he got for his book, including Hepzibah, that he got them from the gravestones themselves.
Now, one thing I think people don't always realize, because people come to Salem with some ideas and no history backing it, not one person that was accused of witchcraft is buried there. Yeah, Hawthorne is there, but there is no accused folk there. But I know what you were leading into, the gorgeous memorial right at the entrance of the cemetery. So why don't you give me your impression on that? Because honestly, I don't mean to brag here, but I go there for walks on my lunch break. So what was your impression?
This memorial was dedicated in 1992. I believe it was August 5th, 1992. There was a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, and a team of artists named James Cutler and Maggie Smith created this memorial. And the very first thing I noticed walking in was on the ground, the line of cement. And in the cement are all the last words of the people that were killed.
I've noticed that, but there's always people there when I walk through at lunch. So I've never been able to read them all. Were you able to catch any of that?
I was able to catch a few. I wish I could remember them at the moment, but of course I can't. But what did strike me, and it was hard to read, there's a lot of people there. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it empty right now, and it's so beautiful and so big, but it's usually full of people. So it was kind of hard to read. But I believe what they did was they cut them off. It's not the entire last saying of each person.
Okay. Like parts of it.
It's just the first part, as if like their life had been cut short, kind of thing. So it's like an artistic thing that they did, where it's just the first part of each person's last words.
You know, it's weird. Every time I go there, though, I step over it.
It's hard to see. It's on the ground. It's
No,
it's
like, I
not
mean,
very highlighted.
no, I mean, I step over it. Like another superstition I follow from when I was a kid.
Oh, you don't
on a
step on
crack.
it.
Don't step on a crack. You'll break your mother's back. Subconsciously, I always step over it.
Well, that makes sense.
I never step on it. And I didn't think about that until I was there with you. And I noticed that I subconsciously do not step on that. I step over it. Kind of
That
along
makes
the
sense.
don't step on the crack, you break your mother's back kind of
Or
superstition.
don't step on something that's holy. Those are powerful words. I mean, those are words that these accused spoke and no one listened.
Right.
They,
And somehow in my mind, it's disrespectful to step on it.
yeah, I love that. I love that. And so when you walk in, it's this low wall. It's not even waist high. It's just a low stone wall surrounding three sides of,
They almost look like stone benches gutting out from a stone wall, kind of like
yeah.
that height, almost like a bench height.
Yeah, instead of sticking up like a grave, these stones stick out, like you said, like a bench from the wall, and carved in each one is the name and the date and how they were killed. Martha Carrier, hanged August 19th, 1692. Of course, I saw the one for Giles Corey, pressed to death September 19th, 1692. And walking around, it really hits home when you see name after name after name killed on the same day. And that's really when it struck me how terrified everybody must have been in the town at that time. Just the thought that at any moment, your neighbor could accuse you or your child or your spouse of being a witch.
And you were standing in the same location where these people were fearing for their lives. Granted, 300 years ago, but like, here's the thing. And this kind of, we touched about this a tiny bit in the last episode, and I'm sure we'll touch on it again. You think you're going to come here and get this witch trials vibe, but what you're really getting is a washed over tourist, watered down, you know what I mean? You're not getting a lot of that old witchy vibe. And in certain spots and in certain locations and at certain times, you feel like what it would have been like in, our last episode, we were talking about it with the stained glass windows at the witch house. Somebody at one point 400 years ago was looking out those same windows we were. And in this spot, people were fearing for their lives in that same exact spot where we were just hanging out. And you feel it in that memorial area. Whereas you might not feel that walking down Essex Street or what have you. But in that memorial area, it becomes a little more somber.
I think if people are going there looking for everything to be haunted,
I think they do. That's the problem.
You're not exactly going to get that. I mean, I guess it is a little. I mean, it's haunted with the weight of history. There's so much there. And again, just to walk around and to know these are the very streets and the cobbles and the stones are there. And these dark gray buildings that are all preserved, they all kind of preserve that moment in history. So I don't know. I guess haunted with history, it could certainly be that.
It's almost
There's
like
so much.
It feels like it's like an onion that you just keep peeling back and peeling back, and the more you peel back, the more there is. You know what I mean?
And if you're coming from a town where there's maybe one pagan shop that's disguised as a gift shop or something.
Been there, done that.
Right. To go to Salem where not only are there shops upon shops upon
it's like
shops,
Mecca.
Everyone there will talk to you about witches and witchcraft. They'll talk to you about spells.
You can
and
look
ritual.
like a witch and no one turns their head in disgust.
You can walk down
They're
the
like,
street.
Hey, I love that velvet dress. Awesome. Where'd you get it?
Fantastic cloak. Oh, you made it yourself? Cool. That doesn't really happen anywhere else. It's fully acceptable here. And so if you want to go and get that vibe, it's wonderful. It's rich, it's thick, it feels good. You go from being in the broom closet and quiet about who you are to wanting to wear that purple
overwhelming
cloak
acceptance. You go from the broom closet to overwhelming acceptance, because here, no matter what your flavor, you fit in and everybody's cool with you. And Salem's kind of like a melting pot, and not just religiously, but in most demographics, whatever your deal in life is, it's okay in Salem. And that's different
right.
than what I'm used to in a small rural upstate New York town.
Yes. And I loved how you said that because it's so true that that radical acceptance, that wild everywhere you turn, it's going to be okay to be who you are. That you don't get that. And that's beautiful and that's fabulous. And I mean, go there for that, if nothing else.
One Halloween, I saw a guy wearing a Speedo and he was just walking down the street and people were like, go you, man, happy Halloween.
Exactly. And it is a wonderful place to experience that, especially as a witch. I mean, I know there's so many other types of people who have difficulty being who they are just in real life. Obviously, witchcraft is not like the worst one, but just to go somewhere and not have to second guess, wearing your witchy best. It's just a lot of fun, and everyone you talk to is going to know what herb is good for your headache. They're going to know what crystal is going to help elevate your mood. It's just a really nice vibe.
Oh, you want to do this type of spell? Well, maybe you should pick up this and pick up this and then get a pinch of this and a dash of that. Oh, here you go. Do you want a little silk bag for that?
Yes, it's very validating and very fabulous. I love that you get to live here. I love that you get to experience all of this wonderfulness that Salem has to offer. And I think you have a lot to offer back.
Sometimes I'll walk down Essex Street, and even though it's so commercial, the middle of the street is still the cobblestone. And like sometimes I actually trip on it because I'm a klutz. And I'll be like, how many people over how long have walked down this cobblestone street? Because it's, the original street. And the way it's built, you're like, they built this for horses and carriages, not for cars. Today I went to Artemis Botanicals today, and there's like 2 walls that are nothing but jars of herbs, and they'll measure out how many ounces you want out of the jars.
There were 2 shops in particular that I really, really loved going into and absolutely have got to go in again.
We know one of them's Lori Cabot's Enchanted.
Nope. Didn't even make my top 5, to be honest. I know. Sorry. It just didn't. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But
okay,
there
let
was
me
some
guess.
that I loved way more.
Let me guess. Right by my work, and it had the bones. You could buy teeth there. Hive and Forge.
Yes, that's exactly it. Hive and Forge is on 30 Church Street in Salem, Massachusetts. And they describe themselves as eclectic finery and peculiar oddities, featuring 30-plus local makers and curators. So it's Hive and Forge Craft and Curation Collective, and I adored them. That shop was fantastic.
Well, everybody loves frickin' the twin boys.
Black Veil.
That's it.
Yep. So yeah, and the other one was the Black Veil, and I'm absolutely going to be getting an appointment to have a tattoo from one of those gentlemen. That shop is gorgeous. I loved everything in there. It was a really great place.
I want to go do a ritual in their back room. Hell.
Right? I would love it. It looks like somebody's been doing ritual in there, judging by the candles in the tree. But I guess they competed on Ink Master in 2016.
Oh, no shit.
Who knew? I'm going to have to look up that season of Ink Master. But yeah, the twin brothers from Black Veil, which is a tattoo shop and a regular sales shop in Salem. Matthew and Ryan Murray, they're identical twins. It's the Black Veil Studio of Tattoo and Art on Cabot Street.
And they're kind of cute, by the way.
Oh yeah, they were on season 8 of Ink Master, so I'm gonna have to check them out.
How did they fare? Is the question.
I don't know. That is a good question. I did not see that season, but the Black Veil Studio was a really, really cool shop. Let's talk about our visit to the House of the 7 Gables. What did you think? What was your first impression?
So here was my opinion. Now, it's funny because, I guess I joke and call it a part-time resident of Salem for the last 6 years. I've lived here full-time for 2.5 and never made it there. Never once made it there. And then once we started doing this podcast and talking about, doing a Salem month, because I lived here, I purposefully didn't go there, waiting for you to come so that we could go together.
Oh, it was such a great tour. I loved it. Well worth it. You got in for free.
I got in for free, by the way. Salem residents free. But I would have paid. I don't even care. I would have paid. But
To get into the House of Seven Gables, if you are a Salem resident like Chelle, you can get in for free. Or in October, it's $25 for a guided tour package. I highly recommend it. It was very informative. Our guide, Katie with a C,
Yep.
was fabulous. So, and you can get a grounds pass if you just want to walk around and look at the buildings or look at the gardens, which are gorgeous. That, I believe, is $12.
Here's the thing. I am actually glad that I waited to experience this with you because, first of all, anytime we do anything together, it's super kick-ass.
So much fun.
I guess I didn't know that it was more than one house.
Okay, that's actually a really good point. The House of the Seven Gables is a park, essentially.
Yeah, you hear house of the, you don't hear houses. You know, I didn't know.
It's actually considered a museum site, and there are 5 buildings there, all of which, well, most of which were moved to the mansion. The mansion itself, the House of the Seven Gables, was built on the spot where it is right now. So it's on the original spot. Then there's also something called the Retire Beckett House, which is the museum store, and that was moved there in 1924. Then there's the Hooper Hathaway House and the Counting House, and those were moved to the site. And also the house that was the birthplace of Nathaniel Hawthorne. That's the house where we ended our tour. That was originally on Union Street, I guess, and that was moved to the museum site in 1958.
You know what I liked about that house?
What?
That house was red.
Yeah.
And all the other houses were that black wood that we've talked about in our previous episode. But the Hawthorne birthplace, it was red and it was cute.
It stood out. I wonder why that one's red and the other ones have that special paint on them to preserve the wood.
I didn't legit did not know that there were that many. I just thought it was one house. I thought it was one house. My bad. I didn't know.
Now, the Counting House was closed when we were there. It looked like they were doing renovations, but you could see into it from the Hawthorne house. It was cute. And the little museum store, which is the Retire Beckett House, I don't know who that is. I feel terrible. But that wasn't really a focus of our particular tour. But you could walk through that house and purchase things at the store, which was a lot of fun, including Nathaniel Hawthorne's books.
Yeah,
copies
actually,
of his books that are for sale there.
If you are looking for souvenirs that relate to Hawthorne in any way, actually the gift store at the House of Seven Gables, rock solid, 110%. Great. No, I was just going to say that when you go there, it's not just the houses you want to experience. You really want to check out the garden. We keep saying this. How many houses? That must have been a thing in Salem, gardens.
It must have been. Maybe that time period, I think all houses had a vegetable garden at the very least. But these gardens are stunning, and they're kind of in the middle of all these houses and the museum proper. Yeah, very, very pretty. And interestingly, on the second floor of the House of Seven Gables, you, me, and my husband, when we looked at our pictures later, we had all stood in apparently the exact same spot at the exact same window and took pictures of the garden in the exact same way.
Wasn't that so weird when we figured that out? Because that was so not planned.
Do you know what I read later doing research?
Oh, Jesus, you're going to freak me out now, aren't you? Can't help yourself.
Now, Nathaniel Hawthorne did not live in this mansion,
no.
This House of the Seven Gables. His cousin, who he was very close to, lived there. And her name was Susanna Ingersoll. And she was fucking wicked cool, but we'll get into her later.
Power to the woman!
Right? Apparently, she is well known to have stood in a window on the second floor overlooking the gardens. In particular, a window that had a view of the gardens and the water.
Now, so, I would like to add to this little tidbit of the story that, that was a super cool location, first of all. But, you and I kind of go through things with I wonder what we're going to see or feel or hear or experience, blah, 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 blah. And you go through this whole house, a lot of fun, very cool, very historic. That stairwell, not for the claustrophobic.
No. We'll get to the hidden staircase.
Note to self, please do not wear short dresses to the House of Seven Gables tour.
I had the best view.
But, we're going through everything. You and I had both agreed after the fact, after we left and we're driving home, the same room that we all randomly took the same picture was the only room that we all said that we actually felt something
Yes.
Because isn't that
Yes.
the room? I know I'm going to let you talk about it and tell the story, but isn't that the room where you felt like you might have seen something?
Yeah, and I'm going to preface that when we get there, I'll talk a little more about it. I'll preface it with it could have been another tour, it could have been a tour guide. I'm not sure, but we'll get there. Maybe I saw a ghost.
Layla's just talking shit because that place isn't big enough that there wasn't enough room for another tour to cast a shadow, but we'll let her talk her shit. Keep going.
So we went to the House of Seven Gables, not because maybe you didn't go there before, because the House of the Seven Gables isn't technically a witchy house. It was there during the witch trials.
I think people think that any of those houses that have that black color are witchy. Mistaken assumption.
They do look witchy, and this is a historic house that was there during that time period. And someone related to the house, Judge Hathorne, who is, again, the great-great-grandfather of Nathaniel Hawthorne, he was part of the witch trials.
So what? Would
but he
have
didn't
been,
live there.
Would he have been the great uncle to Suzanne Ingersoll then? I think they were cousins.
So maybe the same. He would probably also be her great-great-grandfather.
Okay. So there was technically like a DNA tie, but there was no tie from the witch trials to this.
I think some people do make a tie there because the book, The House of the Seven Gables, that Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote, takes place during the witch trials, and the house figures into that.
Do you know how cool it was to be in some of those rooms and be like, Nathaniel Hawthorne was in here thinking about the pages he was writing?
Right? When he was there with Susanna, there weren't seven gables on the house. There were actually only three. So a little quick history of the house itself. It's actually called the Turner Ingersoll Mansion, and it was built in 1668 by a captain named John Turner, who was extremely wealthy. However, his father came to the United States as an indentured servant, which is essentially a slave, for 12 years. So his son was born while he was here in the States as an indentured servant. And so he grew up in poverty. Very quickly, this boy took Salem by storm. He started as a hat and shoe merchant, and by 1668 had made so much money that he built the mansion, which at the time, I think our tour guide showed us what it looked like originally. It was a very large 2-story building, but still didn't have seven gables.
Actually, if you guys, if any of our listeners take the tour, remember she had that model where she could pull apart
in the attic.
Yeah, what it looked like. That was super cool.
Very cool.
I know you're trying to give a little bit of the history, but for those who don't know, and there's no shame in the game if you don't know, because I didn't know until kind of recently. Can you kind of explain what a gable is?
I'm so glad you asked.
Like, what the fuck is seven gables? What is one, let alone seven?
Sure. A gable is a fancy way to say a sloped roof that's shaped like a triangle.
A pointy roof. So they had 7 pointy roofs.
Yep. So I had 7. Yeah, exactly. I had 7 triangle pointed roofs. But in the beginning, it just had 2 gables, I believe.
Well, I just figured some people don't know what a gable is. It's not like we call it that nowadays.
Pointy roof. Gable's a pointy roof. And so it was small, but very large for the time. And he continually added on to it. And eventually it did have 7 gables. It was a very large house.
With beautiful fireplaces, by the way. Freaking beautiful fireplaces.
The whole thing was gorgeous. And it was constructed in a way to show off the wealth. From the types of pillars that were used down to the color paint. The height of the ceilings being high to show that they could afford to heat such large rooms.
People think the witch trial stuff is like super old history, but bear in mind, the House of the Seven Gables was built, 30 years prior to the witch trials. So actually the House of the Seven Gables predates the witch trials.
Yeah, and again, the house itself has nothing to do with the witch trials other than the fact that someone lived there while the witch trials were happening.
And had a distant relation to a judge. Correct.
Really,
that's really the only tie, is a distant.
Yeah, in the future, that judge's offspring would have a tie to the house.
But in a small town in that time, everybody's related to everybody, folks.
That's the same Judge Hathorne whose gravestone is at the Burying Point Cemetery.
One thing that I felt was interesting and I didn't know, did you know that green paint kind of meant you were rich? I didn't know that. And Katie, our tour guide with a C, explained that it was like a copper paint. And then I find out that paint can kill you. So if you're rich, you can afford expensive paint that's going to kill you. Bravo.
How fun. Now, by the time, so Susanna Ingersoll was Nathaniel Hawthorne's second cousin, and by all accounts, they were very close. And it was her tales.
She made it that Katie made it sound like they were like best friends and spent a lot of time together, and that he spent a lot of time at her house.
She was the heir, but I loved the story of
This
how
is my
she,
favorite part of her story.
right, kind of bucked tradition and fought her family to get her inheritance and keep that house.
Women were not allowed to have money and property, especially if they were married. You had half a chance to have money and property if you were single, but the minute you got married, you forfeited that to your husband. That's bullshit, by the way.
And Susanna made a name and a fortune for herself. You know, she, from what I understand, when she inherited the property, her mother inherited the property when her husband, Samuel, and her son, Ebenezer, died of a sickness after a journey. I believe it was yellow fever. And then 3 other children died. So Susanna was the only remaining child. Her father and her brother die. And then her mother dies in 1811, and Susanna inherits everything. I believe she had to fight her uncle for it. Do you remember?
It was a more distant relative, and I remember that someone in our tour had asked if she got remarried, and they were very adamant that she would not entertain getting married no matter what, because that meant forfeiting everything to her husband. And back then, let's be legit, people didn't really marry for love, and someone would have come after her just to take her shit and then lock her up in a gable. I don't know. And
right. She was not willing to give up any type of power to anyone, so she would not get married.
She chose her inheritance over love. And back in that day, you had to do what you had to do. I would have done the same.
Yep.
But she fought it in court and won, which I think they made it sound like that was not a normal thing either.
Right. And so very strong woman, kept it together, very close to Nathaniel, and by all accounts, a very good storyteller. It was her stories about what the house had originally looked like with 7 gables, because I guess throughout the years it had gotten built up and then kind of changed as styles changed. So it no longer had 7 gables when Susanna and Nathaniel would play chess, but she told him about the time that it did. And that struck his fancy so much that that's why he wrote it that way in the House of the 7 Gables.
I almost felt like the way the tour guide explained it and their closeness and all those stories and playing the games and stuff, it almost felt like they may have co-wrote some of it.
Oh, I love that thought.
Did you get that impression maybe now that I've pointed it out to you? Did you feel like maybe she was implying that Susanna might have contributed?
Maybe. I don't know. I definitely got the impression that her lively conversation certainly sparked his imagination.
And had a lot of
inspiration
on stuff. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
It was the way it was implied as they were more like best friends than relatives. You know what I mean?
Yes. I very much got that impression as well. And a later relative, I don't remember what her name was. Much later, another relative put back the 7 Gables and actually added a few things to the house to make it more closely resemble the house from the book, The House of the 7 Gables.
I think that's about the time that they were looking to then use it as a museum, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, she added the storefront. She added a few things to the house itself. She added back all the gables to come to a total of 7. To make it more of a tourist attraction. And one of the more fun bits is the secret staircase that you get to go into that's in the dining room right next to the fireplace.
Yeah, you're calling it fun bits because I had on a short dress and you were behind me.
Well, it was nice to be distracted because I'm very claustrophobic. We'll put a picture up on the website of the door. It's a very, very narrow staircase. I'm not joking. It's tiny. And it kind of pops out from the wall. It looks like a panel of the wall next to the fireplace. And our tour guide popped it open and told the story of a character in the book who was known to move about the house secretly. And so this particular owner of the house put the staircase in to, again, more closely resemble the book. And we know this because it's in the plans for that year, the staircase. Although several websites that I went to alternately said that it was put in the house when it was created to save relatives from the Salem witch trials. Also, that it was put in later and used during the Underground Railroad. But that house was never a stop on the Underground Railroad, and the staircase did not exist during the Salem witch trials.
Basically, it sounded like there was a family member that was kind of like a recluse, and they would use that stairwell to move about the house because they were recluse. There ain't no big drama story here, people. There ain't.
Well, that was it. Yeah, in the book. That was in the book.
Yeah, but I mean, to say that it was used as is the Underground Railroad and that's just false. But I would like to point out, you did not like this. So that staircase actually leads to a room that you then feel that there's no way out. Yeah, there was no door, and
I was good with the staircase.
That's because you were looking up my dress.
That helped. It was your love's son, I believe, the night before, who was regaling us with stories of when he had gone in. So I knew to expect the staircase, and I was prepared for it. And it was fun enough that I was able to kind of breathe through and look up your dress as we were going up this teeny tiny staircase. I knew it was going to be okay. So I was good with that. But then we get to this little teeny tiny room.
But it felt like a room with no door and no way out.
It did. The only doors I could see were the one little door that we came up in, and there were people coming up through that door, so I couldn't go back down because it's much too tiny. There's no way I could go down that until everyone had come out. And the only other door that we were near was a closet. So I started to get a little panicky in that very small room. So keep that in mind if you're claustrophobic. But there was a couple windows, and we stood by a window that helped a little. And then once we could see, I saw that there was another door on the other side of the room.
It actually didn't even really look like a door. It looked like a panel that opened up. Now, yeah, you're short and we still love you, but I had to duck to go through it. So like, this wasn't like a full size, like what you're used to as a door. It almost felt like you were walking between the walls. When we left that room, didn't you almost have that sense like you were walking between the walls?
Yes. Yeah. It feels like, even though it was kind of like cobbled together later to be a secret stairwell in a secret room, it very much feels like a secret room. It's a lot of fun. It's tiny and it's tucked back, and it's got these little windows that you can look out.
But it feels like you're in a place that no one could find you if they didn't know that room was there.
It really does. The doors are kind of concealed in the wall. And as you come out, like you said, the house is settled a little bit. So a lot of the door frames kind of angle down.
Right.
So as you go through, most people have to duck. I'm barely 5'2", so I didn't have to. But you Amazon people all had to duck quite a bit.
Be jealous.
But it's a really, really cool house. And there's a lot of history there and a lot of stories. And it's just fun to experience that. Our tour guide had so much to tell about the space.
That's one thing really I do want to also point out for anybody coming to the Salem region any time of year, even not October. The tour guides at the House of Seven Gables, like, they get quality folks. They give them historical education. You're not getting no bullshit. You're getting the facts, the history. And if anybody in the Salem area is listening, Katie with a C, who is a tour guide at the House of Seven Gables, deserves a raise because she did a bang up badass job with us. And we were just fascinated start to finish, weren't we? Totally fascinated.
We were. I hung on her every word. It was a lot of fun. She had so much information about the house, about the time, about all the different little tiny details that you might have otherwise
missed. I loved? I'm such an ass. I loved the secret panel that opened up to like a liquor cabinet.
That was beautiful. I wanted to put my weed in there.
It was so ornate and pretty, and you could put gorgeous. You could actually put bongs in there, and then
a lot of space.
I don't know if I'd use it for liquor, but totally.
But like, this is my cannabis cabinet. It's beautiful. Look at it.
Let me open this up. Which would you like? Would you like a pipe? Would you like a bong? Pick one. What flavor?
Now, there is one room where they're not doing so many renovations. They've kind of left it so that you can see what it looks like. And they have a few different, I believe it was the room where we took the pictures. We were kind of going past that room on the first part of the tour. And that's where I think I may have seen a ghost or a tour guide or another person or something. But what I saw as we were going down the hall, past this doorway that ended up being that partly finished room with the displays that we went into later.
I know that one of the displays was pressed tea from China.
Yes, very cool stuff. And so as we were going by there, my eye was caught because I saw a woman with like brown hair. All I really got an impression of was someone who'd put their hair up like in a big messy bun, somebody with dark brown hair, big messy bun, and like a dark maroon, either baggy pants or dress, maybe. I don't know. Didn't really see them full on, just caught an impression that there was someone there. It struck me because the room itself looked different from the rest of them. So I saw this person go by and kind of stuck my head that way so I could look into the room because it's not as finished or polished as the rest of the house. And I didn't see anybody there, and I didn't see that same person later. So I don't know. I like to think maybe I saw Susanna just for a second.
I would just like to point out, folks, that I'm nosy. I look at everything around me. I don't know. It was built into me to know my surroundings, especially with people around. And not once was there anybody matching that description anywhere near us in that house. Just saying.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Now, the tour guides and the people that work there will swear up and down that it's not haunted.
Yeah,
But
but I do think that room, I didn't, all the other places, gorgeous, like the hearth fireplaces downstairs, I would die for that shit. But
oh yeah.
but that room, that unfinished room, and I can put up a picture on Instagram for y'all to see. But there was this one corner, and you didn't catch it in the beginning until we got home, or back to my house, I should say. I was showing you my pictures, but this one corner kept pulling me, and for some reason I zoomed right in where the what do you call it? Crown molding meets in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
And even you, when you saw the picture, you were like, yeah, there's something about that. I don't know who or what. I didn't get a who or what or why vibe, but there's something that was like in that room. I can't even say if I felt positive, negative, indifferent. I just something. And I kept drawing to that, like the corner of the room where the crown molding meets at the top, to the point where I ended up taking a picture of it.
And it's that room where people have said they have pictures of Susanna herself standing in that window. And historically, it's said that that's where she would stand and look out over the gardens.
Now, remember,
people see shadows.
Tell us what you found out, because I remember you I hope you remember what she said, because I'm calling you out on it. I remember you specifically asking the tour guide, what was that room?
The house was built in different sections. There was like a main section, and then there were different wings that were added onto it at different points in time. The unfinished room was at one point the master bedroom. I was trying to determine if that was the master bedroom at the time Susanna owned the house. So I'm fairly certain that room above the dining room was Susanna's
bedroom. Which would make sense because, again, to circle back to something we said previously, this is also the same room where myself, Layla, and Layla's husband unknowingly all took the same picture out the same window of the same thing.
And it's not like there's just one window here. This is the whole wall of windows. We were wandering around taking different pictures of all sorts of different things. We just happened to take the exact same photo.
And obviously, when you're looking out windows, you can hit anything from any angle. We took the same picture from the same angle of the same thing. Like, it was fucked up.
Other people do report seeing shadow figures in the corners. Particularly in the attic. A lot of people like to mention the attic, which is above the room that we were in when you were looking up at the crown molding. They also see the ghost of a little boy. And there's different rumors as to who this little boy might be. None of them kind of really fit, but enough people see this little boy separately that they know he's kind of there.
I don't believe I heard a backstory on that. Do you remember a backstory on the boy?
No, I don't have any backstory on the boy, just that people see the ghost of a little boy playing near the attic, and that a psychic went there once and took a tour of the house. She said she saw a young boy playing up near the Gables, and she took a picture of him.
Oh.
Other people have reported that they, too, like possibly I, have seen Susanna Ingersoll walking the halls and have taken pictures of her peeking out the windows at the gardens. Some people have reported when they've gone up into the attic, a whole tour started feeling nauseous all at the same time. They went up to the attic and a couple people started feeling queasy and dizzy. Quite a few people in the same tour all reported having the same feelings, and they're not sure why. People have caught faces in the upstairs windows. So there are some reports of ghosts here and there, but not a lot. And again, most of the tour guides and employees will tell you that they haven't seen anything and that they feel it's not haunted.
I
So
mean,
I don't know.
just like anything else, it's all a matter of perspective. This is going to blow your mind. I believe I felt more activity at the House of Seven Gables, specifically in that room, than I did at the whole witch house.
I believe it. There's been a lot that's happened in the House of Seven Gables. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm pretty sure I saw a flash of something, and a lot of people have reported seeing different things there. So that's interesting.
We've talked in a lot of episodes, probably almost every damn one, Jesus. We've talked about like locational hauntings that are tied to the location. I do think it was Susan that you saw. And here's why, because I think she loved that house so damn much that the bitch won't leave.
I believe it. She fought for that house. She was more than willing to
I don't think that she was like slayed to death there. And
no.
I just think she is stubborn and will not give up her house. That's her house.
That makes
her
sense.
Damn house, and she ain't giving it up for nobody, no matter how many hundreds of years. That's her house, and that's kind of, it ain't witchy, it isn't creepy. It's just she fought for that house, and she's still not giving it up 400 years later.
That makes total sense.
That's the haunting vibe I get. Like, this is my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I do too. I very much get that as well. Her story is so wrapped up in the story of the House of Seven Gables.
I just wish
really
I knew the backstory of the boy, because she didn't have children and stuff. So that's where I'm kind of like, where did the boy fit into the whole history of the house? But you get a handful or a dozen or a couple dozen people who see it. I ain't going to dispute it. I just am curious of the backstory.
Okay, so I didn't find anything specifically about a boy who had died there or a boy ghost. It's not entirely accurate that Susanna didn't have any children. It's true that she never married, even though she had many offers, and she always signed her paperwork as Susanna Ingersoll, single woman. So that part's true. And she did love the house and pretty much lived there her entire life. She did, however, adopt a son named Horace Connolly, and he became her heir. But he didn't die there, and he did grow up there. Also, another interesting fact about Susanna is that in the 1830s, a woman named Mary Clough began living in the mansion with Susanna. Some people thought maybe that she was the housekeeper, but not much is known about her. She's listed in some records as a servant, and sometimes she's only listed as a member of the household, but nothing else is really said. A few people, and I'm definitely one of them, think that she was Susanna's love, Susanna's life partner. And there are also rumors that Mary was Horace's biological mother. We also know that when Susanna passed away, in her will, she wrote that Horace would inherit the property under the stipulation that he take care of Mary until her death. Interesting. Susanna was definitely a very cool, interesting woman and a badass.
But let me tell you, if you are a history buff, this shit rocks. This shit rocks. I mean, and we both are the same. We like the ghosty, the paranormal, the spooky wooky, but we also like history. And for the sake of history, it is worth however much they charge you to get in, because I wouldn't know, because Salem residents are free.
And one of my favorite things, and I'm not going to give it away because you have to go on the tour to find out, was in the attic. We went up to the attic and the tour guide showed us, you can see a lot of the different pieces of construction and some of the old ways of construction in the attic, which is cool enough. There's also a miniature of the house that the tour guide used to show us how the house was built and added onto and taken away from
it's
through
evolved.
the years.
Yeah.
And there's a secret in the floor. And I really, really liked that detail that Katie, with a C, our tour guide, pointed out.
And I thought that was a cool fact. And I'm going to keep my lip zipped on it. But I was like, oh my God, that's fucked up.
Right? What a fun historical fact. I really, really enjoyed that one. So we're going to keep it.
It wasn't what I thought. And when I found out, I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
I was quite surprised.
Not what you would have thought.
No, not at all. Not at all what anyone would have thought, which what made it kind of interesting. And it's silly little things like that that stand out.
But if you
But
want
yeah,
to know, you have to go up the secret stairway. Ha 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 ha.
and if you're lucky enough to get Katie with a C as your tour guide, tell her that the Stone Witches Hour sent you.
And that we love her and she deserves a raise.
That's right. Tip her well. We didn't talk about what we're smoking.
I got an 8 for 8 on Endgame. I'm still smoking Endgame.
Really? Yum. We've talked recently about the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
My father grows outdoor in New York State, and he has harvested, and I managed to visit him recently and got some of his weed. So to continue our charcuterie board of cannabis, this bowl that we're smoking on is some of Layla's dad's weed. Also smoking some blue coffee, which is
Ooh.
something I've never heard of before. And I couldn't really find, it doesn't have any THC content listed, and I couldn't find it online. So I don't know what blue coffee is, but it's kind of delicious. It's very, very, it's kind of not really purple, but kind of dark red. It's got some super dark green leaves, and
Ooh.
but it's very dark.
It looks a little orangey.
Yeah, it's kind of dark red. It's got like a dark red, dark green, dark red.
Because I've had this Endgame for so long, I just feel like, and I feel like such a mooch smoking all your weed, but we're going to smoke all your weed because you have different stuff than I do.
I'm always happy to bring stuff over to you. And, you know, my dad's stuff is a little shaggy. He is definitely not a trimmer at all. He just kind of cuts the buds off.
That's why we love your dad's weed. We've been smoking your dad's weed for 20 years like that.
Right, right. You take the fan leaves off though, and you just kind of, this is definitely good stuff and shove, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's airier, it's not as tight, but it smokes really good.
And I would just like to point out to everybody that for as much as Layla has ridden my ass episode after episode after episode about my damn silicone pipe that I love more than anything, she ain't bitching about it. She ain't bitching about it when she's puffing off it, are you now?
I can't stop smoking it. I've broken yet another glass bowl. Yeah, thankfully they're only like $20.
That's because you didn't get a silicone pipe, and that's why you know what? Don't you love my little top?
It's perfect. I love the whole thing. It's cute. I thought it was gonna feel weird or smoke weird, but no, it smokes perfectly. I love it.
Well, now you want one.
I do. Well, I do, and I also don't. I love my glass.
Can we just talk for a minute? Because now that you're in Salem and have actually experienced it, how do you like just being able to smoke whenever, wherever? Here we are. Let's just smoke. How'd that strike you?
How nice is that? You know, you see people just walking down, find a nice little spot to smoke.
Because I think this is the first time that we've hung out together in a legal state.
True.
So it was we were both acting like people are going to smell weed. And then we're like, oh yeah, that's right. Puff, puff, pass.
You know, you go to a nice little outdoor smoking spot and it's nice to be able to just sit there and spark up a joint or grab your little silicone pipe and puff on it. It's really nice.
I forgot when we did our last episode to ask you that because I did want to get your impression of
legal thing? I love it.
The legal thing and just being able to kind of, I mean, we were just smoking, going from place to place. How fun.
It's just a little surreal to go from being closeted, you know, the weed closet to being able to smoke on the street if we wanted to.
Very similar from going from the broom closet to...
Were we ever in the broom closet?
You and I weren't, but we were the exception and not the rule.
That's true. I was very much as I could be in the weed closet because you had to be, you know, it was very much illegal. So to be able to see it, you know, going down the street or being able to see the shops everywhere. We walked into a couple head shops. I looked at pipes there and I think it's great.
I mean, they verify that you're 21, but Jesus, I can't even buy a pack of cigarettes without being verified that I'm 21. So what's the difference? But
yeah, and it's not, you know, I wasn't smoking like right next to a bunch of kids or anything. We were being good about it, but it's really nice to be able to be outside and to not have to worry that I'm going to get a ticket or, for fuck's sake, go to jail.
Yeah.
You know, lose my job, lose my freedom over an herb. It's very nice to not have to worry about it.
You got a new book. I want to know, what is your new book? who is it by, most importantly, and what is it, like a book, a poem, a book of poems, a book of rituals? Like, start talking, woman.
Well, after reconnecting with Gail Hamby for Never Again the Burning, I discovered that she has a couple books up on Amazon. And so I bought one of them called The Fourth Face of the Goddess by Gail Perigo Hamby. And on page 73 is the poem Never Again the Burning.
Oh, no shit.
Yes, and it is slightly updated. She said she's barely touched it since she wrote it. She said she wrote it and it just like came out of her and she just like wrote it all down. It was great. But
So what do you mean by updates? Is some of it reworded? Like,
just a little bit. The very end of it, she says, you know how they say, "Oh, sisters and brothers here." She changed it. "I wake in a cold sweat and cannot drink from the glass you bring me. Oh, sisters and brothers here, our daughters, our sons must not dream these dreams. We must defend ourselves, stand with each other, and make the arsonist let us be. Oh, my kinfolk here, never again the burning." So she says that she changed the last verse to include those beloved kinsmen I have found over the years. It is not just my sisters to whom the task falls, to keep our children and ourselves safe from those who still would do us harm. And she says, let us stand together in this day and age. If we will not help each other, how can we ever help ourselves? So she kind of changed it a little bit in the end to include not just our daughters, but our sons. Because as we know, witches are male, female, and every flavor in between. So she did update it just a tiny bit. Instead of just, oh, sisters, it's oh, kinsfolk.
That was so, I like the update. You know, Gail, if you're listening, God, I hope you are. I would love this to be re-released with that, I don't even want to call it music background because it wasn't music. I don't even know how to describe it, but I would love for that to be like re-released. And if she re-released the new version, how cool would that be?
That would be very cool. And I think you would really like this book. It's not just poems. It's short stories. I mean, it's mostly poems, but there's quarter calls in here.
Really?
She's got a little thing about the arcana, tarot cards, like her own little thoughts on the cards.
Is this almost like literally like Gail's side book of shadows?
It feels very much like her little journal, Gail's little personal book of shadows. And now, it's very nice.
What's the title of this again?
This again is called The Fourth Face of the Goddess, which, as you know, I geeked out about because decades ago, when you and I were doing the pagan festival circuit, my main presentation, whatever you want to call it, was called The Fourth Face of the Goddess, where I talked about, you see the triple goddess with the crescent and the full moon and the other crescent. I talked about the new moon, the dark moon that we would celebrate in our coven circle Amarat. And I talked about the warrior goddess, the part of woman and goddess that you're told you're too much, you're too loud, you're too angry. That part of us that is a warrior, that part of us that, you're kind of taught should be silenced in order to be a good girl. And
how I always kind of saw the fourth face of the goddess is, how when you go to some of those witchy stores, you see those little statues, or even in pictures and whatnot, you'll see like the maiden face, the mother face, and then the crone face, or like that triple goddess look. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what you never get to see?
The warrior goddess.
What goddess is on the backside of that?
That's right. Well, there's more to us than just that.
In the statue, they kind of almost like put them like a triangle. Well, where's that back piece? That back piece is the fourth face of the goddess.
That
like
hidden
the four
part.
Seasons. Yeah. You have 4 seasons, you have 4 quarters. There's 4 faces of the goddess.
There are. And she is that dark self, that shadow self sometimes. And I love that Gail has kind of brought that out in this book. It's fantastic.
Fun fact. Anytime I've ever thought of the fourth face of the goddess, you know who I always think of?
Well, who?
Guess. Just try. What goddess would I think of?
Hecate.
No, Lilith.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I don't know why, but when I think of the fourth face,
she does embody that, I think.
I think it's because of like the weird tie-in to the whole Adam and Eve.
Well, Lilith was was created at the same time as Adam to be his equal. And
But they don't tell you that. They don't want you to know that. They want to shove that aside.
that's right.
Like the fourth face of the goddess.
Like the fourth face. And she was too much. She was too loud. She wanted to be his equal. She wanted to be on top during sex.
She wanted to be a warrior.
And he didn't like that. And she went and she met a snake. And the snake told her that God was lying to them and that the tree in the center of the garden that God had said would kill them would actually give them knowledge. And she should eat some. So she went, took a bite, was like, holy shit, God did lie. I'm not dead. I just know a lot now. And so she tried to get Adam to eat some too. And he, of course, wouldn't do it. And so because she ate from the apple, God was like, fuck you, get the hell out of my garden. And he banished her to the coast, where I think she went off and had sex with lots of hot dudes.
Who wouldn't? Duh.
Who wouldn't, right? And then God created Eve out of a rib from Adam so that she would be subservient to him. So there's that legend of Lilith, who's very cool. And Gail says in the beginning of her book, she says, what is the fourth face of the goddess? She is the dark moon, the opposite of the full moon. Equal in power, her time falls between the last light of the waning crescent and the first glimmer of the new crescent. No light can be seen from the moon then. She is the hidden face. And, sometimes we all do that. We kind of wear a mask, I guess. But yeah, so check out the book. Go to Amazon. We have links in the show notes if you want to try it. So yeah, it was a good book. Lots of good poetry in there, including Never Again the Burning.
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to buy the book partially just because it's Gail and I just want some insight into her magical witchy ways.
Right? Just fun stuff. Good poetry.
I would like to take 2 seconds and, we because we've been together the last couple episodes, we forgot to mention this and it breaks my heart that I forgot to. I did post something on Instagram about it, but real quick, R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth, R.I.P. Coolio.
Oh, Coolio.
Coolio, man, Gangster Paradise.
I was shocked when I heard.
That
was quite surprising.
You know what shocked me was that Coolio was 59. And then I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, we're old. If Coolio was 59, we're fucking getting old, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Poor guy.
59 to die. Why would you? No, just the fact that he was so young. I mean, I know 59 is not any spring chicken or anything.
I mean, I cried. I actually cried. And if anybody wants to judge me, kiss my ass. I cried when I found out the Queen died, which, by the way, I just want everybody to know my best friend in the whole wide world, Layla, called me to make sure I was okay when she found out that the Queen died. That's what friends do. So
I know how you feel.
And I wasn't okay. That's the worst part. Yeah, like, how I believe in threes when people drop. So the Queen, Coolio, like, we still got one more, man.
Uh-oh, is it going to be another queen or is it going to be another king?
I think it's going to be another queen. And let me tell you, fucking Elton John dies. I'm just going to fall apart.
That wasn't the first queen I thought of. Beyonce was where I went to when I thought queen, but she better not die.
Everybody light a candle for Queen Elizabeth II and Coolio. What a weird company. You're right. Like, people must be like, that Chelle, she has the weirdest taste in life if she is like
Coolio and the Queen, man.
Coolio and the Queen, man. I wonder.
Equally devastated.
You know what? That Queen was so badass. I bet Elizabeth listened to Coolio at least once.
Maybe. I don't know. You're the Queen expert. I don't know much about the royal family.
She probably danced around Buckingham Palace singing Gangster Paradise.
Do you think she's haunting Buckingham Palace?
I would, because she's probably pissed and wants to whoop her family's ass now that she's not in the spotlight. They were my family. I'd haunt them all just because I was.
I lost my train of thought again.
Layla smokes too much weed, people.
I do. That end game. My goodness.
What is wrong that we seem to smoke triple when we're together? Not even just double. Like, we smoke triple when we're together.
I don't know, but I'm having a really good time. And there's just so much to cover. I'm going to have to do a whole nother trip back here because we have not even scratched the surface.
Now, do we want to tell people what our next episode is about, or should we make them suffer in surprise?
It's pretty fun, so let's make them suffer in surprise. We'll just maybe post some. You'll have to check out our Instagram over the week and see if you can get some clues.
Because honestly, like all of these episodes are awesome. I love having you here and being able to show you all this stuff. And I know that you've been here when you were younger, but like to be able
This
to
is so much fun.
Doing this together is fun, but this next episode, I am dying to do. I have waited so long for this, so long.
It is going to be so much fun. We have so much information, so many pictures. It's fabulous, and it is a topic that we absolutely adore, and you guys are going to have a lot of fun with.
And we're not going to tell you.
We're not going to tell you.
What do they say on TV? Tune in next week to find out.
That's right. And check out our Instagram at The Stoned Witches, right?
The Stoned Witches Hour, you fool. Stoned Witches Hour.
The Stoned Witches Hour. Check out our Instagram at The Stoned Witches Hour.
Layla's too stoned to remember our Instagram.
I'm too high. It's that end game. I mean, man, between the end game and my dad weed, I'm having a hard time. So check out next week, episode 37 at 4:20 a.m., where your favorite stoned witches will get together and talk about our mystery topic in Salem, Massachusetts.
And I would like to point out for this episode, and I will post it on Instagram as a teaser, Layla and I have a picture relating to the secret episode that is like freaking magazine worthy, man.
Oh,
like
really? I can't wait
worthy.
to see. Oh, well, now I'm intrigued and going to have to watch our Instagram at the Stoned Witches Hour just to see, because I'm curious too. But yeah, a lot of fun.
I think that if you want to see some fun pictures, this is definitely going to be the week for you.
All right, so stay tuned next Wednesday at 4:20 a.m. We'll be back with some more spooky Salem, Massachusetts fun.
Back together in the same place. Woo, 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 woo. This is so fun. Will you just move to Salem? I'm still waiting. I vote. We're
Keep
voting.
asking. It's still cold. It's getting colder.
Who cares?
It's like someone shut summer off. What happened?
Well, someone actually shut summer off. That's what happened.
I don't know. If you want me to move to Salem, ask me in June. I'll come visit you in the summer and then ask me, and you might get more of a yes.
All right, folks, stay tuned because next week, shit's getting more fun.
Stay high, stay happy.
Peace out.